All right, Laura, what do you got going?
Hey, I'm good.
You
The real
paused just
question.
enough to see that I had started it. You didn't know that I started it.
No, I'm starting to be able to tell. I can kind
Yeah.
of see you reach over there and get
Yeah,
it
I'm
started.
doing okay. We're going to talk about why I'm a little discombobulated, but
Yep.
I've been back in country now exactly or in Finley 40 hours right now. No, 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 no. Yes, 40 hours.
Okay.
But
Very good.
anyway, upcoming events to
Up,
share and
upcoming
then we'll get
events.
to where I've been.
Yeah. So Advent's coming up. Starts next Sunday, 1 week from today, if you're listening live. So hopefully you can join us for our Advent Christmas series. We're doing Christmas carols again. We haven't done that for a couple of years. Um, and then I'm really excited. Our worship and communications teams have been working hard on some carol videos. And they're going to be releasing one a week. Since our series, each each week, the focus is on a certain Christmas carol. We're going to be releasing these videos, and these are some of our own musicians that are singing and performing these carols. So I'm excited about that. And then since we aren't going to be back for a while in a couple of weeks. I think it's the Monday or Tuesday. I forget which day of the week it is. Um, we're going to be after Thanksgiving. We're going to be hosting a information meeting about local international ministry. Kind of like wrap your brain around that. Your brain's tired, so you might struggle with that one, but it's basically a local ministry for international people that are here in our area, specifically students, I think, at the University of Findlay. So that's going to be at our North Main campus, 7 o'clock p.m., November 27th. If that's something that would interest you, it's a great way to have an international impact without actually having to do what you did recently, travel around the world. So
Laura, we are having trouble on Facebook,
great.
so apologies to our Facebook viewers. And I clicked the button and I don't know what to do. Um, let's see. Edit. Edit doesn't let us do anything. Let's see if we remove it from Facebook, and then we'll try and re-add it while we're fumbling around here. See if that helps reconnect it to Facebook. Sorry if you're a normal Facebook viewer. That may oh, there's a check mark now. So maybe now it's live on Facebook. Sorry if you're watching on Facebook. Technical difficulties again. Not sure what's going on with StreamYard and Facebook. So, Laura,
Yeah.
where have I been?
Where have you been?
I've been around the world and back again. That's where I've been. I went to Bangladesh and Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
And we have ministry partners in both of those countries. Bangladesh, we visited some Bible schools, the two campuses that we partner with. We visited some church gatherings that were out in the middle of no man's land in Bangladesh, which was my favorite part.
Mm-hmm.
And we also, I participated in a pastor's conference. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then in Hungary, it was just a quick stop. We were originally supposed to go to Lebanon, but with the war going on, RCB, Resurrection Church Beirut, said not a good idea to stop by. And so on the way back, Hungary, you fly over Europe. Sam and Krista and their kids are there, and we've been partnering with them. They were supposed to go back to Russia a
Mm-hmm.
year and a half ago, and then the war over there with Russia and Ukraine kicked off, and so they got their emergency plan, which all EPC missionaries have. The sort of like they get hit by a bus. It's kind of like
Oh,
the
yeah.
war starts off in your region. What are you going to do?
What are you
And
gonna
their
do?
plan was
Where are
to
you
go
gonna go?
to
Yeah.
was going to go to Budapest, and so we were actually the first ministry partners to stop by in the year and a half they've been there just to see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have been on vacation in Europe and stopped by because they were already like doing like a cruise on the Danube River or something. And
Mm-hmm.
but we were the first ones without any other reason other than to see them stop by. And so that seemed to be a big encouragement to Sam and the family. And so that was good. But that's where I've been. And again, I got back. We're recording this Sunday night at about 6 p.m. Got into Findlay on Saturday morning at 2 a.m. And so it is been quite the trip. I was telling you, Laura, before we went live, that my brain was apparently on the flight after mine because it's been a rough morning. Yesterday wasn't as bad. I just kind of followed Emily around town, didn't have to think much. But this morning, names, getting back to the swing of things was a bit tough. But we're getting back, and like I saw some others who were on the trip with me, and they were looking like they were having fun too. Today was a morning when I wished that I drank coffee. I can put it that way.
Yeah, I
Would have
could see
been
that.
good to be a coffee drinker this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I and some folks from Gateway and some others from our denomination have been to. They also went to Tajikistan, but I linked up in Bangladesh with them.
Yep. All right. What were a few highlights or favorite memories from your trip?
So we started with visiting the 2 Bible school campuses that we partner with, and we participated in their graduation. I have pictures that I'll try and do my best to share, as well as I'll probably have to share the pictures afterwards because I don't know that I can talk and share at the same time. And what really impressed me is that the graduates were between 17 and 21 years old. So very, very young.
Yeah.
And they're going back to their villages to be church leaders. And some of them will be the only Christian in their entire village. I asked that question just sort of on the spur of the moment while I was doing, I don't know if it's the commencement speech or whatever I was doing. And Shaquille, who is our ministry partner over there, he thinks that the question maybe wasn't quite understood, but 4 of the kids raised their hand, and he thought it was not understood because he thinks that there's about 8 of the 30 who will be the only Christian in their village. And so that was it was a bit of a shock and surprise to me. And then again, thinking 17 years old, 18, 19, like really, really young, and taking ownership of their faith so much earlier than we tend to here in the U.S. And when we talk about the pastors' conference, the same is very much true. Very much reminds me of what we see in the Bible, where Paul goes into a town, people come to faith. He quickly says, all right, you're now the pastor of this church. And that person may have been a Christian like a day longer than the other people.
Yeah.
And then just not enough. We take for granted like that there will be time for me to grow up spiritually, where they don't have that time. You just have to grow up quickly. They also don't have much time to grow up in like the emotional, physical way either. They have to just grow up so much faster. So that was neat. Something else that surprised me. So we pull up to Hotel Jimmy. It's trying to crack the top 50,000 hotels in Bangladesh. And believe it or not, it was not nearly as bad as I was led to believe. Now, Kelly had some cockroaches in his room, but that was his room, not my room. My room was perfectly fine, other than being on the corner of the hotel and the street noise. Man, 11 o'clock at night, they are still going strong. And I had to
They were having fun out there, huh?
I had to put earplugs in. I don't know if they're having fun. It was a Hindu temple right across the street. And when I say a street, like our offices are probably wider than the road, like individually our office. And so the other buildings are real close. But anyway, we pull up to Hotel Jimmy. I slide open the van door, get out, and I'm immediately greeted with, "Hi, Pastor Josh," by someone that's a Bangladeshi that I don't know who they are. And his name was Max. I later learned he's one of the instructors at the Bible schools. And so I had no idea how he knew me. And I asked him, and he says that he watches me online. And I thought that was really, really, really crazy. And so
I actually think Max may occasionally submit prayer requests to us as well.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So he may very well. And then I mentioned this to Kelly, who was on the trip here on staff, our Go director. And he mentioned it was obvious to everybody. Oh yeah, of course Max watches online. And then I learned that someone named Otto was watching us from Lebanon, who had nothing to do with Resurrection Church Beirut, but heard about the ESL stuff that we do on Saturday mornings. And just from finding us from Lebanon, with none of our connections there, that Otto now helps with ESL, and we're now helping him Otto out with some funds for doing ESL work as well. And so I'm like, the not realizing the online reach that we have was pretty shocking. So yeah, I was just sort of welcomed with, "Hi, Pastor Josh." So I'm going to do my best to. I think it has to be one at a time the way that this works. So I'm going to try and, if you're only listening to this online, you'll probably want to go back and find this on YouTube or Facebook, because I think that the pictures are going to be totally worth it. And so here is my picture in a cap and gown. First time since high school, because I never went to any of my college graduations. And so
it's
I
very
thought it was,
colorful behind you.
that awning, because we're on the roof, so that's covering the keeping us in the shade. They've had that since like 1995 or 96. And so Shaquille was just saying that when they get something, they try their best to make it last. And so that was pretty neat. And then another, man, every time I'm gonna have to go in and out. So I'll set this up. So we had a graduation party for the graduates, and it was at probably like a fancy restaurant for them. And we had put ribbon out on the tables, and we had balloons trying to celebrate them. And I saw the leftover ribbon, like, like the 2-inch ribbon that you like use at showers, baby showers or whatever. And I looked at Kelly and I said, "Kelly, I have got a great idea for a game that these students will love." And the game was, why don't we wrap Shaquille, Kelly, and Emily Bingley up in the extra ribbon? And so, like, of course I left myself out, because why would I want to be wrapped up in ribbon?
You're facilitating the game, it sounds like.
I was totally facilitating the game. And so that was Emily Bingley. If you are watching, I wanted to make sure, because we had girl graduates. This is the first time. And then Kelly, man, they really liked to get him wrapped up there. So that was fun. Kelly, when he heard it, he knew that the students were going to love the idea. And so he conceded that I did have a halfway decent idea there. I'm going to open up this next set of photos before we move on here. Apologies to the listeners as I multitask. This next set, there's a few pictures, because this is when we went out to the churches, which is one of my favorite parts. So going to visit the churches, we would drive hours to get out to a church. And the best way that I can describe Bangladesh is that if you've ever been to like the very, very lower part of Louisiana or the Everglades of Florida, or if you've ever seen like a movie that takes place in Vietnam, like the wetlands, the palm trees, the very much of a jungle field, rice fields. That's where we were. And so we would drive for hours, and then we would pull over, and you couldn't even see the little village. You'd have to walk so far to get to it, and it's hidden in the trees probably for just the shade and everything. And we were just out in some of the the whole nation is poor, but you're out in places where there's no running water, there's no indoor plumbing, there's no access to medical care. And I remember having the thought that most of these people, this village of maybe it's 100 people, is the only geographic location that they'll ever know. Like, they don't have means to even travel anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was interesting to sort of just see sort of that limitation to life. When we went to visit, there were mainly women there, because the men were out working the rice fields when we came to visit. And so the gatherings were mainly women and their children. And I could have done a whole trip just visiting these churches. We were at the churches, and as I said, because of and when I say churches, like, they don't have a building, they meet in a house. And some of the photos you'll see a blue building. That's a school, not even where they meet. It was just enough place for them to all sit. So that's where we met. But they, unbeknownst to us, after we talked a little bit, Kelly shared, somebody else shared, the interpreter said, at this time, we're going to do a time for times for healing prayers. And if anybody had anything that they wanted prayer for, to stand up. And like 90% of the people stood up because, again, there are people with cancer. There was someone with, with a prosthetic leg, all kinds of things. And they don't have anybody that they can go to. They don't have even real access to Tylenol. And so, for those who, because we haven't talked about this a lot, I did a gifts on the supernatural, and I have some experience with praying for others to be healed and seeing God be merciful. And so I just went with kind of what I know, and so I asked the interpreter to say if there's anybody with hearing issues, deaf, to come to me, and a few did, and there was a boy who was born deaf in both ears and mute. And I laid my hands on him. And first off, what was neat later is I learned that his name in Bangladeshi translated to English means joy, and my wife and my daughter's middle name was Joy, so that was neat. But God was gracious, and the boy could not hear at all since birth or speak, and his right ear opened up, and he was able to hear.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, just through God's gracious gift through prayer.
Yeah.
And his face when my hands came off his ear, and I can't imagine, because he wouldn't know what was being said, but he could hear. And honestly, I was a bit torn at the time, because I was thankful that he could hear, and I was torn because I wanted him to be able to hear out of both ears and be able to speak. And so I tried praying again, and only the one ear opened up, and everybody else was really encouraged. And I tried to through the interpreter, tell the women around him to keep praying for him, that he would be able to speak. At some point he tried, and sounds came out, and I don't know if it's just because he doesn't know what words should be. But that was a neat moment. And I think that for most on the team, it was one of their first times to witness a miraculous healing like that. And so was thankful to be a part of that. And so let me just share some of these pictures, and I'll try and get through them somewhat quickly and share with you all what is seen here. So this is us walking through a rice field to get to it. So all of that, it looks like grass, but that's rice. The guy in the back in the white pants, was the interpreter. This guy with the blue not facing us, he is one of the pastors, one of the original graduates of the Bible school. And so all of these congregations are related to people who've gone through the Bible school that we partner with. And then this was the second church that we visited. And so they do meet in that house that's behind us. That is a house. And as you can see, mainly women that are here. And what was so fun is the color of their outfits. It's just so colorful. And so that was one of the house churches. And I was thankful that Emily on staff was able to go to that one, because she and Brian, who were both on the trip, they got a bit of a stomach bug. I don't know if it was from what they ate, but so I was glad that she got to come out to at least one of the house churches. Brian didn't get to make to any of it, just due to not feeling well for a couple of days. And that can happen when you're on a trip, no fault of theirs, just it happens sometimes. This was at the first church that we visited, and so that blue building in the back, I at first thought was the church building, and then found out that it was the local school. So you can again see just mainly women, and again the colorful clothes that they wear. Let's see, who else do we have here? This is the first church in the it looks like a piece of wood that's laying in front of that lady. That's her prosthetic leg
Mm,
there, and so you can even see just what they have compared to what someone here in the States would have
yeah.
as far as help and care, and just the challenges. And you can see in the back there the palm trees
Yeah.
and all of that, just to give an idea of what the land is like. It's the actual land is quite beautiful. The villages and cities themselves are, not very clean. There's a lot of trash everywhere. They just don't have sanitation. They don't have
Yeah.
the garbage pickup like we have. This lady wanted a selfie with me. And she had a cell phone. And so I said, well, if you're going to take a selfie with me, I want a selfie with you. And what was interesting is that I don't know if we were the first white people for them to see or not, but they were very interested in seeing us. This was at the second church. These kids were sitting right in front of me, and we were kind of playing around.
Yeah.
Goofing off is a universal language, I learned. And
Yeah.
I even got in a little trouble with one of them because I was goofing off a little too much with the kids and having fun. But you know what? I wanted them to have some fun
Yeah.
memories with their visitors from afar. But yeah, they all wanted pictures with us, and particularly wanted to see a picture of my wife.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, the women, because it was mainly women, and so they wanted
Yeah.
to see who are you married to, and so this
Yeah.
is a group that wanted that I asked if I could have
Yeah.
a photo with, and so just great people. I didn't meet a single person in Bangladesh, Christian or not, who wasn't happy to see us. The
Mm,
the entire country. I've been in countries near this area of the world and was not warmly received by
right.
everyone.
Yeah.
Warmly received by every single person. Bangladesh people are very hospitable. And again, I felt safe walking on the streets. I did walk on the streets. You know, didn't need a Bangladesh individual who knew me to be with me, and I still
Yeah.
felt comfortable on the streets. And it was just neat to be in a situation kind of like that. So the next one, while I'm closing all of these pictures, we did was the pastors conference, and for safety reasons, I'm not going to share any pictures from it,
Hmm.
just to keep those pastors safe. I guess I should share this because I have the picture of the boy who I prayed for. Thankfully, Kelly or someone snapped a photo because I was praying for him, and so I was not going to
Hmm.
be able to see it. But there in the blue shirt, that is Joy. He's 8, 9 years old, and shortly after this moment was his first time hearing, and so
Yeah.
that was really neat to be a part of that moment. But we did the pastors conference, and there were some interesting things in the pastors conference. First off, they were all Muslim background believers, and so there was 40 of them there, and
Okay.
so that was really encouraging. So on the trip with us was Gabriel, who is the director of the missions department of our denomination, and he was blown away that this is like the goal. People coming from Islam to knowing Jesus Christ, not just as a prophet, but as Savior and Lord, and a room full of pastors. I got to meet Saddam Hussein. He was named after Saddam Hussein,
Yeah.
and never realized that would be a name anyone would want to name their child after. But if you're a very dedicated Muslim, he is a hero to you. And someone said, "Don't you think he should change his name?" And I'm like, "Not at all, because that's a victory for the kingdom when
Mm,
Saddam Hussein is now a pastor in a church. He and his uncle and his cousin, so his uncle and his uncle's son and him were all there as pastors.
that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, it was very neat.
Do you
And
know their story?
um,
Like,
yeah, so it's really hard to know stories because there was 40 of them, and and Shaquille is the only interpreter.
yeah.
And so that was the hard part. And Shaquille had said that they've done this a few times gathering, and not all the same pastors come every time. but they did one time where all they did was just share their stories with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But what I realized is that though I would have loved to know their stories, that would have probably been selfish on my part. What I really was there for was to take a picture with them and to shake their hands.
Yeah.
And there's some universal language that just is known as in the realm of encouragement, and that's what we were there for. There were again about 40 pastors there. There were a few exceptions, a few guys that had been Christians for a long time, but the average was somewhere between 2 to 4 years that they had been a Christian, and they're pastoring churches. And so when you talk about growing up fast, and not all of these guys had been through the Bible school,
Mm-hmm.
but what impressed me is, man, they knew their Bibles.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were such students of God's word with so many limitations, so less resources to help them know their Bible. It was just neat to see, with just God's word and a passion for Jesus, what you can know. What we didn't know is that in Bangladesh, it is shameful to ask questions, because in that culture, to have a question means that you don't know something, which is the same here. But to not know something in that culture means you're dumb. And so what people do there is they just never ask questions, so they never have answers. Well, there was a young man, and he was very, very brave. And he told Shaquille, and after I think that I had done an introduction to God's word being authoritative, and then the guy co-leading with me did sort of what I've done it in Finding Jesus, like Luke 24, that Jesus says that all of the scriptures point to him, because
Mm-hmm.
we're kind of showing them how the whole Bible is about Jesus, particularly
Yeah.
the Old Testament, because the Old Testament, especially the first 5 books, the Muslims will have high regard, because those are the writings of Moses and
Sure.
the story of Abraham, and so they have respect for that. And so
Mm-hmm.
to help them sort of apologetically understand how to point their family and friends who are Muslim to Jesus through the books of Moses. And so I did then Genesis, showed them how to do it. And then we thought, let's try a little exercise of them breaking up into groups and seeing how they would find Jesus. And that's when we learned that these guys know their Bible, because they were using all great stories to find Jesus. And then this young, brave guy told Shaquille that he had some questions that he would like to ask. And what he did, he didn't even get to ask the first question. But what he did was break the ice that this was going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up doing an entire session, about another hour, of only answering questions. And it was lunchtime, and they were not stopping, because they were afraid that if they stopped asking questions and we went to lunch, that we would not answer questions afterwards. And so Shaquille told them, we can do questions after lunch. They were all just speaking in their language.
Yeah.
And then Shaquille came up to Steve and I, the guy co-leading with me, and he said, you guys have no idea how unusual this is. And then he told us all about the culture of shame and being dumb and all this kind of stuff. And so we did another hour and a half of answering questions after that. And their questions were like so into the details of scripture. Like, we read this, and then over here we see this, like the questions like, how was Satan in heaven in the book of Job when God had cast him out of heaven, because of his rebellion, and all kinds of great questions. And then the next day they asked more questions. And so it was just really, really neat to see God's Spirit going before us and really breaking a cultural barrier down, an idol of sorts. And so that was really encouraging to be a part of. So that was the part there that was fun. And then so we did that pastors conference for about a day and a half. And then one final highlight of the trip is that I really love the driving. The driving there isn't for everybody. I get it. Laura, I think I've told you in the past that I have this very strange thing that it's true for heights. It's true for anything that
Mm,
if I know, like for
mhm.
heights, if I know that the fall won't kill me, but will only hurt me, I'm afraid of that height. If the height is I'll die, I'm not afraid of it. I don't know why. That's just the
Mhm.
way that I work. That if it's going to result in a lot of pain, but I live,
No, thank
that's
you.
no thank you, including with driving. And so driving there, uh, your life is basically on the line the whole time. And so I was fine with the chaos, and they drive completely different than us. They ignore all road rules. I even asked Shaquille at one point in time, I'm like, does Bangladesh even have street lights? Because I've not seen a single street light
Mm,
in the
mhm.
entire nation. And he goes, I think there's one. And I said,
One in the whole
I said,
country.
I said, would people obey it? He goes, no, it's just a suggestion. And so everything's just a suggestion there. There is a hierarchy on the road, like the buses, they're number one. They're the
Okay.
lions, they're the orca
Uh-huh.
whales. Like everybody has to pull up the
You
side.
get out of their way.
Down to people walking on the road, which is incredible. And so our perfect driving record unfortunately ended on the weekend. We did not have a good weekend. Um, I thought we had killed a guy. Um, Thankfully, we only took out the back of his bike, and I don't know if he got off or what, but his rice bag did not make it. There were words. There were words shared between our driver and the bicyclist. I
My
asked
guess
our
is, like, you didn't even know what they were saying, but you sorta knew what they were saying.
so this is what's hard. Every conversation in their language seems like an argument. Like they
Oh,
are very animated people. I even asked Shaquille about that. I said, "Why does it always sound like you guys are arguing?" And
yeah.
he goes, "We're just very animated. It's just how
Okay.
how they how they talk." And so one assumed that because there had been an incident that this was more than just animated conversation. And so I
Uh-huh.
asked
Uh-huh.
our interpreter, I said, "So what are they saying right there?" And he said, he probably gave me the PG version. He
Sure.
said that because our driver was not a believer, he
Mhm.
Muslim, but they hire him a lot, and they believe he's coming closer
Mm,
to
mhm.
knowing Christ. And he basically said that our driver told the bicyclist that he had room and he should have moved further over. And we took off. So we took out a bag of rice on Saturday. On Sunday, why did the chicken cross the road? To die. Apparently, that's why the chicken it tried
Uh,
flying at about 4.5 feet off the ground,
after
and
you
it
hit it?
it, it hit the driver's windshield and
Oh.
shocked our driver. And we didn't even get chicken and rice for dinner, but so, the weekday driving though, because we got back to Monday and like we were back on, like, we
Mhm.
just dusted ourselves off and started over again. But so that was interesting. The driving. Um, Bangladesh was doing well also for not being the worst driving that I've ever experienced. That was still Sri Lanka until we tried to get back to the airport. And the only way I can describe this is that the next time you drive through a school zone,
Mhm.
and it says 20. Now
Mhm.
somebody like you, Laura, probably goes 20, but sometimes you go like 22,
Mhm.
maybe
Mhm. Mhm.
23.
That might be more
Um,
like 25, something like
well,
that.
25, that would be too fast for this illustration.
Mhm.
Um, we averaged under 24 miles per hour. We were 23 miles per hour for 6 hours
6
straight
hours.
because
Yeah,
of the
I'd be
traffic.
losing my mind.
So
Yeah.
Bangladesh has about 130, 140 million people and a geographic size of about Georgia. And Dhaka has 37 million people, so about 3 times the size of the population of Metro New York. And everybody had to be on the street because we did okay until we got, I don't know how many kilometers outside of Dhaka, but 23 point something miles per hour was what we averaged
Mm,
for 6 hours. We were all done. I
yeah.
remember one point in time, Shaquille saw a little stand that was having tea on the side. He's
Mhm.
like, "Does anybody want tea?" And we were all like total Americans at that point. We were like, "No, get us to the
Keep
airport."
going.
Like, like we have 12 hours to get there, and right now we've used more of the hours than we thought we were going to be using.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so We didn't even get to we were going to go to a hotel to like wash up and have dinner before we went to the airport. We had to go straight to the airport. It was quite the trip. But when we were out in the no man's land where you could really drive around, I thought the driving was awesome. I'll show you some videos later of driving around and harrowing escapes through traffic. And I really bonded with the driver. I'll show a picture of him in a little bit. We bonded over not knowing the same language, but knowing the closeness of calls, and we would look at each other only when it was like, "Ooh, we almost that was almost it," and we would just smile big and go, "Yeah." So it was good to just have that bond of language.
Sure. Yeah.
Shamim was his name, the driver who took us around. So that was sort of the highlights
Yep.
of the things we did, but more particularly the driving, for anybody who's wondering what it's like there, because the missions the missions dinner, we talk about the driving. The Bangladesh trip always talks about the driving.
Okay.
It lived up to its reputation, but it wasn't. It was mainly thrilling for me, and then yeah. Now, if you get car sick, because there was a couple people that struggled with that, and
not so good for them. Well, they probably appreciated the 23 miles an hour then.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought, well, this has got to be good, and one of the individuals said, no, it didn't really help.
No, okay. Well.
Yeah.
What surprised you?
So, honestly, it'd been a while since I've been on a really long travel, and so the travel to get there wasn't nearly as bad as I anticipated. I had really sort of amped it up in my mind of, this trip. So I left here at about 1:00 on Tuesday, and I landed in Bangladesh at 8 a.m. on Thursday. So that's a long day. A long time of travel.
A long time of travel.
Honestly, the hardest part was not the longest flight, which was like a 12.5-hour flight. It was the 6-hour layover in Dubai, because you're really tired at that point. I don't have any idea what time that was here when I got there, but it was after, leaving 1:00, driving to Cleveland. I think my flight was like 5:30, hour and a half flight to Newark, like a 9:30 takeoff, 12.5-hour flight. And then in Dubai for 6 hours, because you're so tired, you want to sleep, but you also know that you can't miss your next flight.
Yeah.
And so you have to stay awake. And that was probably the hardest part of the trip, was in Dubai, just being really, really tired and wanting to just get there. And then once you got there, it's 8 a.m, you're going. And so it's hard not to, the actual flipping the time zones wasn't so bad. It was 11 hours. And so basically morning is evening, evening is morning. And, the time about 1 to 3 in the afternoon there is the hardest, because that's the middle of the night here.
Yeah.
And so you just got to get through those hard hours. But the travel wasn't nearly as bad. Time switch wasn't too bad. Food wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It was just really, really spicy. Really, really spicy. In fact, there was no consistency in food preparation. When we were at a hotel, the last hotel I stayed at, there was a pretty decent restaurant, and I looked at the menu and I thought, what's something that if it goes well with my stomach, I'm willing to eat for the next 2.5 days?
Yeah.
So there was chicken shawarma, like a little chicken in a pita wrap. I thought, all right, if this goes well, it's just chicken, a couple vegetables, pita. If it sits well, I could do that for the next, 5 meals. And so I ordered it, and it was fantastic. In fact, in ordering it, 2 other people on the team thought, that sounds good, I'm going to order it as well. And then the next meal, I ordered again. I'm like, this feels a little bit spicier than my lunch meal. And they don't know who's ordering it. They weren't like trying to prank me or anything. Like, it was just totally not consistent, because other people ordered it as well, and it was not the same temperature. And so the third time I ordered it, I thought maybe that was just a fluke. And it was even spicier. And so they were making fun of me, people on the team, like, oh, Josh is a wimp, can't handle spicy food. The chicken shawarma was cut in half. And so I told a guy making fun of me, I'm like, let's swap our other half.
Yeah.
And so we did. and he called it his original one a 2 out of 10. And so he
Mhm.
thought like, why are you being such a wimp? It's only
Yeah.
2 out of 10 spicy. He bit into mine. He goes, oh, this is like a 7 out of 10. I'm like, thank you.
Wow, that is a big difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference. And so I ordered a lot of naan to help calm down my tongue.
Mhm.
Interesting fun fact. We usually say naan bread. That's
Mhm.
actually us saying bread twice. And so naan
Oh,
means bread. And so
leave it at naan.
yeah, just leave it at naan. And so did that. And so a couple of times I just had to eat rice
Mm,
because I knew I could tell by the color of sauces.
yeah,
Just don't go there.
yeah.
Just wasn't good. So food wasn't terrible. Just couple of places it was just really, really, really spicy. And then I already mentioned this, but everybody in Bangladesh was glad to see us. We could stop on the side of the road on a 6-hour, 23-mile-per-hour trip, random place, and the people had no idea. And I don't know if they were thinking like aliens just came out of the van, but they were thrilled to see us. If they had a phone, they wanted a photo with us. They wanted to shake our hand. They were just really happy, hospitable people is the way that I would describe the people of Bangladesh.
Mm.
A couple of photos to share to sort of wrap this part up. This gentleman worked at the hotel that we were at, and he kept saying, "You're so young, you're so young." And so I asked him how old he was, and we're within a year of each other. The photo, just
Wow.
seeing his face doesn't really give credit. If you saw him, his whole body, he looks like a 65-year-old. So it's
Huh.
about 20 years aging
Yeah.
that just the harder life is there. But he was always happy to see me, and because he could understand English pretty well and speak it okay. But when he found out that we were basically within a year of each other, all of the people at the hotel heard this because they would all know me then as basically being birthday buddies with this guy. And so for the next 2 days, it was so fun to see him and see everybody else who knew that we were the birthday buddies. And then here's Shamim, our driver. He wanted a selfie. And so that's the guy who kept us
Uh-huh.
alive the whole time.
Very
Great.
good.
I would call him, I'll label him the honorary greatest driver in all of Bangladesh. We had some close ones, but we managed. And so that was
The only casualty was the chicken, it sounds like. So
yeah, only living. Bag of rice
yeah.
didn't bear so well as
Mhm.
well.
So most of us are probably never going to get to go to Bangladesh or to Budapest. So what are some ways that we could get involved in the work that's happening there, specifically Bangladesh?
Yeah, and I didn't share much about Budapest because honestly, we were there really for a day.
Hmm.
Got in there in the afternoon and left in the early morning, and that was just to encourage Sam and Krista and not let them feel like they're all alone. But we spent most of the time in Bangladesh. I would say first off, don't assume that you won't go there. That it is a perfectly safe place to go. That I don't know if there is something in a political relationship between Bangladesh and US that made everybody that way, or if it's just natural part of their culture. But man, they are just hospitable people. So I would first say don't
Hmm.
assume that you won't go. But we have the Saturday Zoom ESL classes that Kelly is always looking for more people to help
Hmm.
those Bible school students learn English. And so they will know you. That's why they were so thrilled to see Kelly and Emily, because they help with those ESL classes
Hmm.
on Saturday mornings. And so I think that Kelly said that there's a whole another time slot that they would love to do if they had people willing to just be in the comfort of their home,
Hmm.
sitting in front of a computer to do Zoom teaching very, very basic English. You don't have to have like an ESL license or anything like that. If you speak English, you can help them learn English. And so I would say that's something you can do. Contact Kelly if you want to learn more about that. There is a Detroit connection. And so Shaquille, who is our Bangladesh connection, he lives most of the year in Detroit area in Hamtramck,
Hmm.
where he does ministry to Bangladeshis who've moved to the U.S. And so maybe you'll never go to Bangladesh, but you can go up to Detroit, and we've done some
Yep.
missions trips there. And so there's that possibility. I would say you can support those who do go, support them financially, help bring down the cost of the trip for them and for Gateway. And then you can sign up to be a prayer partner there. Laura, I don't know if you want to post that link there, but there's basically our website /ministry-partners, and you can get the latest up to date on both what is going on in Shaquille's life, Sam and Krista's life, and other ministry partners. And so those would be some ways if you don't think that you're going to be able to go to get involved for sure.
Great. And then specifically, what are some ways that we could be praying for some of the people that you met on your trip?
Yeah, so you can pray for the graduates, especially those who are going to be going back to their village to be the only Christian. Again, they are very, very young, and they're going back to do pioneer Christian work like we can't imagine. You can pray for the pastors, those 40-ish men who were there who are trying to lead congregations in a country that is 90+% Muslim. I don't know how high in the 90s it is, but Hindus are the next highest religion. So working in a place where believing in Jesus is not the norm. It's like not thought of doing. Pray for the Christians that are there. I would say pray for your next step and what does it mean for you to be kingdom minded. That's one of our goals for the disciples here at Gateway. Mission trips are for 2024 starting to have signups. I think Cuba is it open right now?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, the deadline actually is pretty soon.
Yeah, and so
yeah.
So it's really easy to live a life here in the States without giving much thought to the global church.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, what can you do this coming year, to not ignore your fellow Christians who are around the world? And so maybe that's signing up for a missions trip, praying for some of the things that we've talked about. Now sign up on that link to get partners emails. If you want to have a more global mindset, 2 resources to check out. I think we've mentioned them before, operationworld.org. Every day there's a statistic on a nation, a way for you to pray for every nation in the world. And then joshuaproject.net, every day there is an unreached people group or a least reached people group that you can pray for and learn more about them. And so those are 2 resources I look at every day in my prayer life just to make sure that I'm keeping a kingdom focus. And so check those resources out. But yeah, I would just say that for all of us, we can all grow in our global church vision. And one person on the team has come back, and I've heard the individual say a few times that I used to use the word that I'm persecuted by some people that I know, and now it's kind of like that's not quite like they're not sure what the word is now that they're supposed to use, but it's not persecuted.
It's not persecuted. Yeah.
Yeah. We were in the house of a lady who in 2020 people showed up with pickaxes and shovels and beat her. So, and she still, and we got to pray for her. We had the honor of praying for her because she still has some memory issues from that incident. And she's not leaving. She's still willing to be in that same community. We were in the house where they came to do that. And so, that to have that vision, to remember that there are still plenty of benefits of the country that we live in, even though more and more people are going away from Jesus in our nation. We're not where they're at.
Yeah.
So be praying for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for going. Thank you for sharing about your trip tonight. Final thought.
I was thankful to be able to go on the trip. Thankful for Gateway allowing me to go. County Road 9 folks for allowing something unusual last week with a video sermon from me. Thankful that we're trying to be a kingdom-minded church, and so look forward to going again. If you know Brian Stoner, he was on the trip, ask him about it. If you know Emily Bingley, ask her. Kelly Green, they've got stories to share as well. They were the fellow Gateway folks who were on the trip with us, and so look forward to going again, but thankful to be able to go. And so encourage everybody, what can you do to be kingdom-minded? What can you do to have your focus on both here, but also on there all around the world?
All right.
Thanks, Laura.
You made it.
I made it.
Yep.
Brain and everything.